Formula One is one of the toughest and most competitive environments known to mankind. Everything in this sport is about performing at the limit, whether it's the car, the driver, or the people who run the teams.
The real power behind everything we do is our people, and that's really what the spirit of the team is about.
Whether in business or in sport, the recruitment and training of personnel is crucial to gaining that competitive edge in the marketplace or out on the track.
We need to have outstanding people who are being extremely creative and are encouraged to be creative and innovative to bring new technologies through to the car.
To get the best out of its people, an organisation must identify what makes them tick.
You only get that loyalty with personal trust. It's trust me, trust the team, and we reciprocate that in the other direction.
In this episode of Formula for Success, we look at the people behind the organisations, how they recruited, trained, and ultimately retained. At the top of the pyramid in a Formula One team is the driver. They command the highest salaries, have the highest profiles, and in certain cases, their teams have invested years in training them. Case in point is Lewis Hamilton. At only 22, he's already drawing comparisons with Tiger Woods. Young, successful, and hugely marketable.
Lewis Hamilton is only 7 years old. But how long have you been racing cars for already, Lewis?
About a year.
My ambition is to get to Formula One.
But his success didn't come out of nowhere. At the age of 9, he was signed by Ron Dennis at McLaren, who pumped millions into his training and development.
I think there are very few people understand how they have to bring up a young driver until he arrives in Formula One or in Formula One. But Ron did fantastic with Lewis Hamilton. Very difficult to understand if somebody didn't have also the commitment and gonna bring what you need. And he took care about him until he's in Formula One. And it's nice to see that stories like this can happen.
13 years later, McLaren's multi-million-pound investment has paid off. A record-breaking debut season has been commercially lucrative, not just for McLaren, but for F1 as a whole. Its popularity has soared with both fans and sponsors, hoping to cash in on the latest role model. Everyone's a winner, including Hamilton himself.
Lewis Hamilton is going to be absolutely massive for Formula One. Here is a young guy, great story. He's come in as a complete rookie and he's there. Michael Schumacher's left Formula One. Here's the next great big superstar whose name is going to be known throughout the world.
But for every Hamilton, there are hundreds of drivers who don't make it. Finding and nurturing young talent is an art, whether in sport or business, that can cost or save an organisation millions of dollars. Sir Frank Williams' son, Jonathan, specialises in spotting the next generation of drivers.
You just try and look for the guy who just shows that little bit extra in speed, in on-track talent, in terms of adaptability, just how he races, and just how effectively he can be in a pack of 20 other very motivated drivers. The biggest prerequisite has to be speed, but maturity, intelligence, it has to be an instinct, just a little bit of a hunch feeling that you get about a driver. There's no template to it.
For me, intelligence is the number one key ingredient there, together with natural speed. Without those things, you are never going to be another Michael Schumacher.
For aspiring world champions, breaking into Formula One will be the end of a grueling and expensive journey, from karting through to GP2. It's a journey that can cost up to $3 million.
You need commercial sponsorship, you need people to invest in you. Luckily, because of some of the successes of some of these young drivers recently, there are people out there that are prepared to sort of take a bet on a racing driver, a bit like investing in a share of a boxer. I am one person that's helped a couple of drivers financially get from the lower echelons into Formula One, and obviously as an investor you would expect a return.
In the same way that business invests in graduates, so Formula One teams have followed McLaren's lead in starting driver training programs. The young Finn Heikki Kovalainen was the first young driver to make the grade with Renault.
Well, obviously it's a very complete program. There's lots of different areas that they are telling drivers and they're teaching drivers basically. Everything else apart from driving, to be honest. We spend quite a lot of time at the factory, so I got to learn all the mechanics, engineers, quite early on.
For some drivers, racing blood runs in the family. In 1982, Keke Rosberg won the World Championship with Williams. Fast forward to 2006 and his son Nico drives for the same Williams team.
I was very young. My father built a two-seater go-kart. I tried it, I was 3 years old, I think. I grew up obviously watching my father, so I was always there and I watched the races and I thought it was fascinating and I really saw that, that's a fantastic job to have and I'd like to do that one day myself. At the age of 17, I drove Frank's F1 car the first time. It was in 2002. And it was a great experience. It was good fun. And I think there I did manage to do my first good impression to the team, really. Because even then I had some technical understanding. I could give some good feedback. And I was pretty quick.
But it's not just drivers that teams are on the hunt for. A driver can't deliver without a good car and a great team of engineers. There are now dedicated university courses which train engineers specifically for Formula One, including Oxford Brookes University in England.
What the industry told us it wanted was very high caliber students. So we designed courses that had a strong core of very good mechanical engineering knowledge and mechanical engineering skills. The fact that 3 of our students are working currently as race engineers within Formula One says a great deal about the quality and calibre of Brookes graduates.
70% of all of the graduates from Oxford Brookes go into the motorsport industry, which now employs an estimated 40,000 people in the UK. University courses such as this one have become a direct feeder into the teams, including David Richards' Pro Drive outfit, who are set to enter the F1 Championship in 2008.
At ProDrive we have a very clear policy about recruiting direct from university young students and then developing and training them continuously through the organisation. So we try and sort of bring them on through the company and develop them ourselves and into our own culture, if you like, of the organisation.
Whether you're looking for the next F1 world champion or a new recruit for your company, identifying and recruiting young and hungry talent can save your business millions. Here at the London Recruitment Fair, companies compete for the best talent available.
Most senior managers, most chief executives will tell you that the most important thing in their company is their people, that it's the people that make their company successful.
The human factor in a company is fundamental. There's a senior manager in P&G who said, if you destroy all my plants, I can build back the company in 2 years. If you take away all my people, I can't build back the company. That's how strong we believe at P&G people are key to the business.
From top to bottom, an organisation's success depends on the quality of its people. But identifying talent is just the start. This must be followed up with training. After the break, we look at how Formula One and the Royal Air Force prepare their teams for action. In F1, as in business, the key to continued success is people. In part 1, we looked at how you identify talent, but the people are only as good as the training they receive. This is true for any organisation, if you're a business or a sport.
You've got to balance the individual, their aspirations, their career path, their expectations, and improve their abilities for the broader good of the organisation.
In Formula One, training is ongoing at all levels. It starts at the top with the driver. For every hour he's racing, he'll spend countless more in training, whether in the gym or behind the wheel. But But with track testing now limited to just 30 days a season, simulators have become a crucial part of training.
I used to be a test driver for the team 2 years ago, and then I was using a simulator quite often. And last year, for my first year in F1, I used it sometimes to learn the new tracks. We try and get the ones practiced where we were not able to test. So circuits like Monaco, things like that, before going there, you try and run them here in the simulator. And it's definitely the tendency that Formula 1 has at the moment to be simulating more things, because just the testing is just getting more limited every year, with more races coming on in the future.
In Formula 1, testing is not just for the benefit of the driver, but also helps the engineers to learn about the car.
As the driver, you are a hugely important link between what's going on out there on the racetrack in the real world, and you have to communicate to the engineers who are incredibly talented and with so much knowledge, but they are thinking in engineering terms. And so the real skill here is for a good driver for development of the car is to cross that bridge with communication skills.
Communication is a key aspect for any business. This is one of the main lessons in the management training courses run by the former marketing manager of Williams F1, Richard West.
You are in the home of the best of the best. You're in the RBS Williams F1 Conference Centre. On the site are the AT&T Williams F1 team.
Today, the RBS Mortgage Division are his clients.
We're working with Richard because he really is an expert in teamwork and communication, and applying the lessons from the Formula 1 business to the business world.
So when people say, oh, how does the Formula 1 team make any money? It runs as a very aggressive, very professional, very correct business unit, facing exactly the same demands and challenges from its leadership as you do.
You should be always learning from the best, and that's why I think association, for example, with Williams, has so many great parallels upon which we can draw.
I think that Formula 1 today, because of the pressure constantly to change, to innovate, to perform better, to deliver more and more and more, quite clearly that has absolutely unquestionable parallels with the business markets of the world today.
Formula 1's a great model for looking at the performance of businesses, mainly because it looks at relative performance. You know, you can think we're getting better and better in our business every year, but if your competitors are getting better faster, then you're going backwards. And it's a very powerful analogy to think about this challenge of constantly competing, constantly improving.
The similarity between these pressures, both in F1 and in business, have made this style of training an effective tool for West's clients, which have included the global technology services company EDS.
In business, every single day you've got a customer interaction. Every single hour you've got a customer interaction. And each one of those is like a mini Grand Prix. You have to run your race, and then at the end of the day you have to count the points and then figure out what you're going to do better the next day.
It's about being the best of the best. And that is what Formula 1 is all about. It's about leaving nothing unturned. And if you can take that message via an involvement, whether it's management training, whether it's through sponsorship, whether it's through manufacturing, back into the general business marketplace, I can only see that's a good thing. I can't see it as a bad thing.
A prime example of using Formula 1 as a training ground for business is evident in some of the modern-day car manufacturers. Leading the pack are Honda, who use Formula 1 to train their engineers in the most demanding environment possible.
We have a system at Honda whereby Honda road car engineers are rotated through the Formula 1 program, and that can be from less than a year, in many cases up to 6 or 7 years, depending on the level of the person. Why would we do that? Firstly, there are specific technologies that we may want that individual to learn about and take back into the Honda Motor Company. But on top of that, we want people to learn about working under pressure. We want people to learn about actually having to develop a part in 2 weeks instead of 2 months or 2 years.
As an engineer, if you can survive and thrive in a demanding environment such as Formula 1, once you're transferred back or moved back into the road car manufacturing environment, you will use those same skills to improve the product quickly, to make strides for the customers quickly, and to improve the technologies of our road cars quickly, and that only benefits the customer.
But when it comes to demanding environments, nothing comes close to frontline military action.
Engine fire as well, that's on the standard. Mayday, that's 69 declaring a mayday. We are currently 20 miles southeast of the airfield.
For a pilot or navigator to achieve combat ready status on a squadron, that would have taken some 2 to 3 years minimum of training, more than £4 to £5 million invested in them just to get them to that point. Everything we do in the UK, every sortie we launch is training.
RAF Marham in Norfolk, UK houses 4 Tornado squadrons. The current political climate demands a training regime that means its personnel are ready for action anywhere in the world at just 24 hours notice. So while simulators may give a competitive edge in Formula One, at Marham the air crews train for challenges they may face in war zones.
Anyone that thinks that they know everything about the aircraft when they get in it just because they've been through the training squadron is kidding themselves, and the simulator is here to prove that.
At 6 feet, watch your overtake. Nicely. Push. You're in.
Air crews will make real training sorties almost every day, but only in the simulator can they prepare for the more hazardous situations that could occur in the field.
Simulator staff will throw things at you with no briefing whatsoever to test us, basically, to make sure that we are as sharp as we should be to take the aircraft airborne for real.
2, 1, activate. Left engine. Okay, away from the ground, left fire.
Today we gave them a left engine fire, and when they'd calmed down from that, I gave them a right fire. It's something they're not expecting. It tests them. The aircraft is now in real jeopardy.
Okay, mate, indicating a right engine fire as well. That's written on the standards. Mayday, mayday, mayday. That's 69 declaring a mayday. We are double engine indicated. Fire, stand by. Okay, we're slowing down. We're losing the speed, mate. I've got my hands on the handle. Okay, and eject.
This is as real as it's going to get without actually losing aeroplanes and worse aircrew. So the time that we spend here is massively important to both, us as individuals and the company.
One of the challenges the RAF faces is the retention of good personnel. It must compete with the commercial sector, while not always being able to offer the same remuneration in terms of salary.
There's always going to be competition for good people, whether they be aircrew or whether they be engineers or whoever. The most important thing from our perspective is to make sure that the organisation to which people belong is the best possible organisation it can be. The things that keep people in are not the things you do when they tell you they're thinking about leaving. They're the things that you do over the preceding 5, 10, 15 years.
This point is just as valid in commercial organisations.
Training and keeping the best talent is about understanding what it is that makes people tick and really continually challenging them and finding them opportunities to stretch themselves, but within a kind of safe boundary in some senses, where they can get out to the limit but not so far out that they're going to crash and burn regularly. So retention of your best people is something that you really want to be focused on.
In Formula One, salaries can run into millions, but money isn't the only factor that keeps staff on board. Good management and empowerment can also make a difference, as Flavio Briatore has proved at first Benetton and now Renault F1.
Flavio Briatore gives people a lot of freedom and flexibility to do the kinds of things they need to do, particularly on the technology front. He has an excellent team of technical people there, and they're there not because they're paid the biggest salaries, but because they get the space and support to get on with their job and do what's best for the team.
We've won 4 World Championships. It's a pretty good record, and I thoroughly enjoy working here. I feel a great responsibility to the people that work here. I'm proud of it.
The retention of personnel will always depend on many factors, not least an affinity with one's employers.
For all companies, that you've got to look for a cultural match. You've got to look for the kind of person who in their heart wants to do the kind of work you do. Lee Iacocca in one of his books said, it doesn't matter whether you're a waiter or you're a senior executive, but if you're doing what you love to do, then you can get in and do it brilliantly, and that's, I think, the key.
People are the essential ingredient to the successful running of all organisations. The importance of recruitment is underlined by the amount of money that both businesses and F1 invest in their people. In Formula One, there's no such thing as too much training. A car can always go faster, and a business can always do better. It's essential to create a working environment conducive to keeping your talent and getting the best out of them. Next time on Formula for Success, we look at the technology that has not only placed F1 at the pinnacle of motorsport, but also at the cutting edge of all industry.